Hello and welcome to the Buddha and the Coach vlog powered by Soul Performance Academy. I'm your host, Dan Mickle. The Buddha and the Coach is a weekly vlog focused on looking at the teachings of the Buddha in a coaching light. The Buddha and the Coach is proud to be sponsored by It's Called Normal Athletics. It's Called Normal Athletics makes the extraordinary ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel at this sport, and ICN offers the programs and educations to make it normal for adaptive athletes to play on any court. Help them make a beach volleyball court a place for everybody. For more information or to donate to the 501c3, please visit icnathletics.com. Again, that is icnathletics.com. It's Called Normal Athletics, and again, thanks to John and Dave and everyone with ICN Athletics for their sponsorship and all the great work that they are doing out there. All right, we are on to lesson 18 of the Buddha, which is an idea that is developed and put into action is more important than an idea that exists only as an idea. Pretty straightforward. Yet we fail at this a lot as coaches and educators, right? We will take data and drown in the data. Data point, data point, data point. Stat, 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 stat. Come up with this great plan. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. And then we never actually do it. We spend all our time planning, setting it up, hoping that it works. And then we never actually take that first step. And it'd be real simple for me just to end this episode of saying, hey, we have to put stuff into action. Do it. Just do it. If you watch our sister vlog, Focus Friday, that was the theme this past week of doing it. But I want to actually go a little bit deeper and think about, well, we know what we have to do, which is putting thoughts and ideas into action. But I want to think and look a little bit deeper about why is it that we don't actually do this? And I think there are a couple of reasons, a couple of philosophies that I might have and theories on that. The first being we're actually scared. That we are scared as coaches and we are scared as educators that our solutions won't work. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have problems with a team, for example, that isn't performing the way that we want them to. So we think about all the reasons why. Maybe it's not the dedication of the team, it's the mental part of the game, or it's the tactical or the technical. Maybe they're just not performing it right. But I think there's always this backside of us. What if it's what I'm asking them to do isn't right? What if me as a coach is what's holding them back? And I think sometimes that almost creates a self-sabotage situation and environment where we have all the data, we have the ideas that we want to work on how to fix it, but we never actually do it because we're afraid, because we as coaches are afraid to fail. And how do we explain to the players then, hey, this is what we're going to do, and if it fails, then they're going to look at us, well, why should we trust this coach because what he's telling us to do and having us to do isn't working? So I think that's one way that a lot of times we have a pause or we don't put our plans into action because there's a little bit of fear there. The other part, and it kind of goes with that, is not necessarily a fear of failing, but almost imposter syndrome, where we have the data, but we're afraid that we are not qualified to do it, so we don't put it into action. We don't want to be found out. We don't want the parents and the players to find out that we don't know what we're doing, so we never actually try a plan or put it into motion. And I think that, which is slightly different than what we first talked with just the fear of failure, the fear of being found out is a little bit different because it's not whether or not you fail, it's more about whether they think you're a fraud. So even if you succeed, we still have those issues, right? How many times have you taken over a program or a team that was successful and they continue to be successful and everyone thinks, well, it's because of what the previous coach or the previous group did. So we have, that fear that we're going to be found out as a fraud and we don't know what we're doing. So maybe there's times that we don't put an idea into action because we're afraid that it's going to upset that cart. A championship winning coach steps down, man, it's really tough to be that next coach in line, right? Because you have to kind of live up to those standards. And it can be tough. And it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? If you win a championship after the championship coach retires, then you won it because of the groundwork that they laid. It's not necessarily you. And if you don't win a championship, well, then you're not as good a coach as the coach that you took over. So that's a really tough position. So I think we have those battles every day. It's not just at the championship level. It's every day that we're afraid that we're not good enough. And again, it's a little bit different than the fear of failure. I think another thing that we can kind of look at in this episode is, maybe we just don't know. Maybe there are just times that we have an idea, but we just don't know how to get there. We can't figure out how to fit all the pieces to make it work. Maybe we're missing some data, or maybe we're missing some processes or things that we have to do, and we just don't know how we're actually going to get there. So we develop that, this is what I want, this is my vision, these are the steps. But because one little thing's missing, we decide not to take that first step. Instead of taking that step and seeing how it works out. Maybe the answer will present itself. But I actually find that this is probably the biggest one that we have, that people are so afraid of the unknown and what might happen that they never take that first step. We just get the idea, and it's a great idea, but then we never actually pull the trigger and do it. Because we're just afraid of what might happen. We don't know how it's going to work out. And we would rather have that unknown of, well, I didn't do it, so I can't be blamed for it, or I didn't fail because I didn't try it, or it didn't work out because I just didn't try it. So we have a lot of ideas probably as coaches, a lot of things that we want to try that never see the light of day because we are so scared to take that first step. So how do we overcome this? How do we go from an idea that's developed and actually move it towards action? Because we could sit there and do the pros and the cons and figure out every outcome. Well, this is what could go wrong. This is what might go wrong. These might be the problems that we have. And I just have a very simple checklist when I get stuck or I'm afraid to implement something or afraid to try it. I just ask myself some simple questions. 1, is it going to hurt physically or mentally or emotionally any of my players or staffs or the community if this doesn't work out? 2, does it set our program or the player back in their training or their goals immensely if this fails or doesn't work out? 3, what is the cost to me if this fails or doesn't work out? And when I look at that and all of them come back of, okay, maybe you'll lose some games. But for me, the big one is if a player or a program is not going to get hurt or community members aren't going to get hurt, that's not enough to hold me back. I need real evidence of what would be harm of at least trying. And then I say to myself, okay, what is the very first step? If I want to take this idea and make it happen, what is the very first step? It may be something as simple as reaching out to someone, but you're afraid to reach out. So that's my first step. I'm just going to reach out and we'll go from there. We'll reevaluate after I get the feedback from there. I'm going to shoot an email, send a voicemail, write a letter, however it works. Or maybe you want to try a new offense. And you're going to try and convince yourself every reason why you should or shouldn't and all the perils if you fail at this new offense. But then you're just going to pick a time and you're just going to do it. What's the first step of implementing that offense? What technique are you changing or what personnel are you changing? And you just take that first step. Don't look at it as the whole project. Don't look at it as this is where we're going to be at the end. Just start with that first step. Because typically that's where the problem begins. If you don't take that first step, then you don't continue. But I would bet probably 80% of the time, once you take that first step, unless there's a huge warning sign, you're going to continue on. But we have to get ourselves to that first step. And again, too many times we sit there and we want to overanalyze because we want to be completely safe doing it. We want to look at what could go wrong, every possible. And I understand why. But at some point, we have to take that first step. So maybe you ask an assistant coach or a mentor or even a player, hey, if we did this today, what would your reaction be? Forget about the long term, all that. Just if I implemented this new offense today, or I implemented this new skill today, or if I taught this lesson like this today, what would your response be? Or ask a coach, or ask a parent. They're a stakeholder as well. But the key is stop developing ideas and then never doing them because you are scared. Because you will always be able to find a reason why you shouldn't do anything or why you want to hold back. Always. There's always those reasons. We need to get past that. Take that first step. If I'm Phil Jackson and I want to do the triangle offense or defense or whatever they were trying to do, I'm just going to do it once, see what it works. Maybe it looks completely foolish, or maybe it works great and we win some championships, but I'm going to take that first step. So what are some ideas that you have worked on and developed that you've never put into action? And we're all guilty of it. I right now have probably 4 online courses that I want to develop. But I'm scared because I don't feel like I'm good enough of an expert to make that course. But this week I'm going to force myself to at least make the first opening module just to see how it goes. Because that's where I have to get. So that's this week's discussion. An idea that is developed and put into action is more important than an idea that exists only as an idea. So my question to you for the discussion, on whatever platform you're watching this video on, is what have you developed as an idea that you never put into action because you were scared? Or you didn't know what to do next? That's step 1 of what I'm asking. Step 2 is how do you get to action? How could you today put that into action? At least start to put it in action. So hit us up in the comments below. Please share, like, subscribe to this channel, and let's grow these discussions. As always, you can reach me directly at Real Dan Mickle across all social media, or dan@danmickle.com. Visit our sponsor, Soul Performance Academy, 717soul.com, and at 717soul across all social media. And of course, visit our title sponsor. It's called Normal Athletics at icnathletics.com. But again, let's grow this discussion. Let's have some real meaningful talk about this. Post in the comments, share, like, spread the love. Peace, much love, don't suck, and we'll see you back here next week for lesson 19 of Buddha and the Coach.